hour, we're going to go ahead and start. Welcome everyone to Rails Optional. This is mine and Deb's little clubhouse that we decided was on the ground, so no one had to climb a ladder or be in a tree that they're allergic to. I am Nicole. I am a person who connects HR to a million different fields and sees what happens. And I'll let Deb introduce herself.
I'm Deb Haas, and I worked in corporate for all of my life, and then they booted me out, the bastards, and so now I'm making stuff up on my own. And luckily I came across Nicole, and she keeps me honest, because otherwise I'd be making shit up all the time.
Like an LLM hallucinating.
Exactly. And I should get a little blurb in there for my business. I got to get into this whole thing of marketing and all that other crap that I needed to learn. I train women 40 plus how to make AI their biatch.
Someday I aspire to have a one-liner that talks about what I do that doesn't sound something like, I help you see the matrix so that you can be lonely and miserable, but know why everything's going wrong. Someday it'll be appealing. I don't know. We'll see. Anyhow, so today, the way we talk about topics is usually something pops into one of our heads, or we see an article or something that's sort of in the news.
Let's just admit it. It pops into Nicole's head. Let's just be honest.
It's usually my head, but sometimes it's something Deb posts that makes it pop into my head. But so today we're talking about curiosity and the difference between being curious and doing curious. And I will not be able to sing my one-liner, Chris. Fun fact, Deb has like opera singing training and has been in multiple performances and was in a very famous choir in Minnesota that I should remember the name of, but I don't remember.
St. Olaf Choir. I was in the St. Olaf Choir there, don't you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Has run like karaoke nights. I mean, if you want singing, it's Deb. She's very lucky she's not a pretty crier, because the two people on the planet who I am jealous of are pretty criers and people who have good singing voices.
In fact, she and I could not have been friends if I had been a pretty crier. And so I actually had to take a picture of myself on one of the days, because I will tell you, being a solopreneur and starting a business when you don't know what the fuck you're doing is one of the most confronting things in the world. And so she's like, "You're not a pretty crier, are you?" And I'm like, here, see, I'm not a pretty crier. It's ugly. Right. Yeah, there's snot everywhere. And it's bad.
I may save it for blackmail someday. And Chris, there is YouTube evidence of the singing. There is this fantastic video of her as the Mother Superior in
my God, that Sound of Music. Mother Abyss. They called me Mother Abyss, because at the break I would go and eat 2 cheeseburgers, and then I'd come out at the Act 1 finale and be like, "Climb every mountain." Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, you're making me hate you, so stop that. When I sing, it sounds like some sort of horrid combination of a cow in labor and a dying goose. Okay, so we're focused. We're sort of focused. So the entire idea of Rails Optional, this started because I messaged Deb after one or another of our podcast episodes where inevitably it turned into this, let's keep this on the rails. And I was like, you know what? I Rails feel like a fake rule, and I don't follow fake rules anymore. So we're going to let's start a podcast, and the rails are optional. So the idea is that we have a topic and we have a vague idea of where it may go because we've done some research. And then from there, it's just kind of is what it is. And the chat drives it, and our particular rabbit holes drive it, and our mood drives it. So, I assume that Mercury is hanging out somewhere weird because I am all over the place right now, and we'll see.
And the chat, you guys, did you catch that though? What she said, that the chat will drive it. So if you guys have an idea of where this chat should go, put it in there.
So typically I start with what I found, and then we go from there. But I also set Deb homework this time. So Deb, you want to talk about your homework?
I actually did the homework. Do you
want to talk about your homework first, or do you want me to talk about my sciencey crap first?
I would love to tell people about my homework. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so every week I write a free newsletter, right? And I started this it's almost been a year now. It's pretty close to a year. And I made a promise when I started it. And then when I make a promise, I got to stick with the promise that I would include a freebie in every single newsletter. Well, Sometimes the freebie is something really simple, but other times I get like into Lovable or something else or Claude Code or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm going to build something amazing. And of course, inevitably, that's on Sunday, and the newsletter goes out Monday morning at 2 a.m. or whenever I get done writing it. And so I'm horrible about this. Like, I very firmly live in the ADHD world of now and not now. So this week, Nicole was like, Deb, do the homework on this topic, and then whatever your freebie is can be. I'm like, oh, yay! You mean I don't have to wait till Sunday and try to cram everything in and get it done in time? Yeah. So my homework was to investigate curiosity, like, because I've always wanted to know, can we train curiosity into people? Because sometimes it feels that some people are completely devoid of curiosity, and I don't think that's true. I think that the majority of humans out there are curious to some extent. Now, it may not be curious about everything, like Nicole and I are, like, not everything. Like, it's if you pique our brains, if you go poke and you say something, we'll be like, curious. Now I need to know. Now I must know. I must go out and find the answer. This is how she and I operate. But I do think people are more curious than we realize. And so take it away, Nicole.
I was about to say, except about cars, I have zero curiosity about vehicles. Don't care. And even when they break, I don't care. I just get curious about how I can find a mechanic I can trust. So, curiosity. The first thing that I started with is, what is curiosity? And I think this is just a habit from academics, right? Like, because we have colloquial and slang and sort of common definitions of things, and that gets us into trouble. So I posted yesterday about this being curious versus doing curious. And that all kind of grounds around the behaviors that a curious person exhibits. And we tend to focus on behaviors in science because behaviors are measurable and behaviors are somewhat reliably measurable. Whereas if you ask someone, do you feel curious? They may or may not tell you the truth. And it may or may not be because they know the truth, right? And so I dug into the literature, and the most widely cited current operational definition, and operational definition in research is the definition that anchors how you are going to measure or talk about it.
Okay.
So the most widely cited definition right now is that curiosity is the threshold of desired uncertainty in the environment, which leads to exploratory behavior. I have a million problems with that. One, it's like hard to unpack, right? But basically, like, it centers on this idea that there is a threshold, a moment that triggers this experience, behavior, or this curiosity, right? And that it triggers an exploratory behavior in response to perceived uncertainty or a perceived information gap.
I actually really like it. It helps me because it's got that uncertainty thing in there, because I don't necessarily associate the word uncertainty with curiosity. So,
oh yeah. So now Deb, you just like gave me the best lead in. So there's a really important thing here that is not in that definition, that is in multiple other definitions. And this is this idea between, like, the motivation. Is it intrinsic or is it extrinsic? Is it internally driven, or is there an external motivator that's causing you to be curious? Like, do you have a reason other than curiosity to be curious? And this is where, like, you start to get into different definitions. So there's curious behavior, and then there's information gathering behavior, and they are not necessarily the same thing. So after you perceive uncertainty, after you feel uncertain, then there are two different responses, right? There are people who can tolerate uncertainty, and there are people who cannot tolerate uncertainty. Both of those people will seek information to get rid of the uncertainty, right?
It's like an itch. It's like an itch you have to scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Some people, it's just like, oh, I just genuinely, like, want to know, and, like, oh, it's cool to know. And they like hanging out in that moment of uncertainty. Like, the discovery feeling is what
Mm.
they are seeking.
It is kind of a rush, isn't it? That moment
Right,
when you
yeah.
discover, oh yeah.
It's lovely. And some people just really, 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 really hate uncertainty.
Mhm.
And so they will seek information to get rid of that feeling. So this is why, like, a need for closure and curiosity aren't like opposites of each other, because you still get this sort of drive to get information, the drive to answer a question, right? And I think this is where corporate has gotten a little crazy. And I think that because so uncertainty is risky,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
we don't like risk in
No, we
corporate,
have to be certain all the time, and or
right?
be certain that we're uncertain.
And be uncertain in the right way. Like, be
Yes,
uncertain in a way that we know there is an answer coming very soon.
an acceptable way, being uncertain acceptably. Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry, I didn't mean to make
Oh,
balloons go.
I have a branding monitor and I cannot make that, and I'm so jealous of your like tech. And every time somebody else has balloons or hearts, I'm always like, what the heck? Um. Okay. So now we are hanging out in corporate world, and we're like in this knowing versus doing curiosity. And I have been playing around with a metaphor. It doesn't have chickens. Sorry. But I think it gets this idea of oh, sorry, rain clouds.
No
But
chickens.
I think it's going to capture this idea, right? Because so we were talking about this, like, different levels of comfort with not knowing, different levels of comfort with uncertainty. And so we're going to treat uncertainty like water. Some people love water. Like, they just feel at home there. Some people genuinely hate the experience of water. Like, just hate it. And
My cats.
we
My cats
know,
hate the experience of water.
actually, I know people who hate the experience of water. So, but we also know that swimming is an important life skill, a safety skill,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you are going to be in water that you didn't have a choice about, and you have to know how to navigate it and get yourself out safety. Blah.
Take the out of it.
So imagine that you are in the suburbs of Denver and
Mm.
you're opening a swimming school.
Mm.
And in the suburbs of Denver, you have a whole target population of people who are incredibly risk averse. Not as risk averse as some other suburbs, but risk averse. And so these parents who you are marketing towards have been reading all sorts of lovely articles on dry drowning and the dangers of dry drowning is a thing, by the way. Like, you accidentally swallow like a little bit of water and you end up drowning even though you're not in the pool. I don't
I've
know. That would
heard
be
of
very
it. I think
terrifying.
it's been on several of the medical TV shows that I've watched. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they had a whole, I don't know, YouTube has an algorithm for new parents that is just designed to terrify you. Um so yeah. So so you're starting this swim school, and you have these parents who are your demographic that are paying for your swim lessons. And you have your lawyers who definitely don't want anyone to drown. And you have your insurance company who are underwriting this entire endeavor and they don't want anyone to drown. And so you start thinking, okay, I'm going to teach swim lessons by teaching people the behavior of people who are comfortable in the water without actually putting anyone in the water. So we're minimizing risk,
Right.
but we're teaching people this incredibly important life skill that we've identified as something that people need to know.
Okay.
So we bring them all into our building that has no water because water is risky. It's safe.
And we're in Denver.
Close.
It's in the mountains. It's not sea level, so it's not as easily accessible as it is like, in Houston.
I'm unsure if you are aware or not. However, whitewater rafting is a very popular activity in our state. Another activity that will terrify you beyond all belief before you ever get to do it. By the end of the bus ride, the last time we went whitewater rafting, I was ready to say, I'll stay here. But it turns out that wasn't an option. So I am one of those people, by the way, who is not the biggest fan of water. Not an ocean person. I lived in Miami for 11 very long years. I don't want to go back. So you start your swim school, and your swim school is teaching people to swim. They are teaching people the motions of people who are comfortable in water. They are teaching people how to look like they are comfortable in water. Like, look like you're having fun in the water. No, we're not teaching them the butterfly. No one looks comfortable doing the butterfly. Even Michael Phelps doesn't look comfortable doing the butterfly. So we're teaching them how to look like people who have fun in the water. And then eventually those people end up in water, and they may look like people who are having fun in the water, but it turns out they still drown because you can't learn how to swim without getting in the water. This is what we've done in corporate. We have, because we're risk averse, we don't like not knowing. We have taught people the behaviors of people who are comfortable not knowing without actually teaching them to be comfortable not knowing. And so we've made it impossible to actually be curious, because it turns out that hanging out in the water is really, really, really frowned upon, and really, really, really messy, and really, really, really risky. And we don't want messy risk. We want certain answers. We want easy, certain answers if possible. And we definitely want marketable, certain answers.
Oh, yeah. They definitely need it. We need to let everyone know, that because it's got to be marketable. It's got to be, public relations safety. I love Chris' definition of this is fine. This is fine. It's all fine.
It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's the thing, right? So it's like we've actually built corporate around anti-curious behaviors, right? Because we don't want people to be risky. We don't want people to not know the answer.
No, because if they didn't know the answer, then they would question us when we told them what the answer was. And we can't have that.
Well, and also, have you noticed, so this is one of the interesting things about doing the work that I'm doing, is how often the answer when I start talking about what I'm doing is, well, do you have a case study? Or who else has done this? And my only answer can be, my dude, we have 30 years of failure to show that what we're doing right now and what has all the case studies, in fact, doesn't work. And so what I can give you is the science behind why it doesn't work and a theory of what might work. But you are going to have to be uncomfortable. You're going to have to hang out in the water, the not knowing, and try things and learn how to swim. You are a human who was built for land, and you've been on land for the last multiple generations. But land is not what we have. You got to try something new. And so maybe you're lucky and you just get to, this metaphor is going to be stretched like taffy. I'm done. I don't have a,
I love it.
I think this
metaphor, I think this is so brilliant because it covers so many different things. The performance of curiosity. Like you and I have lived, I've lived that. That has been my whole corporate career.
Tell me more about that.
The performance of curiosity, it's like, you already know what the answer is. And there's been times when I have been genuinely curious And I learned when I was there. I'm not that way now. Now I'm like, really? What? Tell me more. But at the time I learned, I don't ever bring up those conversations publicly. Like, I might be able to talk to them about to my boss and be like, hey, question for you. I'm really wondering about this and this and this, but I can't ever bring it up in a meeting and go, hey, did anyone else notice that there's a big ass turd in the punch bowl? Why is that there? What are we gonna do with, is there a purpose for the turd? I'm just curious. I want to know.
So when I so the thing that led me into this entire defaults idea, last summer I was putting together a session for HR summer school, and it was a session where I was trying to talk to HR practitioners about a framework for how they could think about getting curious and beginning to understand how all of this new AI and LLM work might impact their work, and how they can like start to run some experiments, and how they can like think things through. And so what I came up with was this nomad framework. And the N is notice assumptions, the O is observe reality, which is sort of like, not what's written down, not what's promised, but what actually happens. And the assumptions are like what frameworks guide your thinking, what's so natural no one even thinks to question it, and was make friends. So like, talk to people who are in other functions, like, not the obvious friends who sit next to you who do your same job or work in your same function, but like the people in other functions who understand how marketing looks at a problem, or how IT is like thinking about building what's next, or what's on finance's wish list, like, sort of expanding your map by making friends. And then ask to validate is the A. So test what you think you know, push at potential illusions, ask your friends how they experience it, probe for what you might be missing. And D was dip in. So like, don't wait until you're certain, don't wait until you're an expert, don't wait until you're invited, like go and engage, volunteer for projects that stretch you, all these things. And as I started teaching this, people had tremendous trouble with notice assumptions and observe reality. And so the way I started talking about it was, okay, you've not been trained as philosophers, like I get it. What feels dangerous to ask?
Mhm.
Like, what question would make you not raise your hand if you were the one who asked it? What question would you send a snarky comment in the side chat for? What question feels so silly that it would make you feel stupid to ask it? That that are the edges. That's where the framework is trapping you. And those are the rules that you don't even realize are rules. Those are the defaults. And so it was a little bit like when I did my dissertation research, and I was originally going to do an experimental study on whether participating in a quiet ego intervention reduced burnout in physicians. And I couldn't do it because no one had done the research between the correlation between burnout and quiet ego. And in dissertation research, you don't get to have your own idea. You only get to fill a gap that's already there. So, and even though burnout and quiet ego had been correlated to a multitude, like 40 of the same things. And so you could guess with pretty clear certainty that the relationship would be there. Somebody had to do the research. So that's the research I did. But as I was building out Nomad, I realized there was this gap, and that no one had done the defaults work. No one had taught people to see these things. And I just kind of laughed because 4 years ago, I changed my title on LinkedIn to HR philosopher. And I did it partly as a joke because I was just like, I'm not selling anything, I'm not buying anything, and no one's gonna like look me up by this title. And I did it partly because I was there to hang out and talk about ideas. And so LinkedIn was sort of the town square of people who cared about work.
I mean, it's there in the title, isn't it? I mean, the title of the platform is something around the work or something. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. Right. So, but the irony that I essentially am teaching philosophy business edition when I named myself an HR philosopher as a joke, it's so intense that you can't even make stuff like that up.
You know where I'm going to go with that. You know, like
I don't.
your whole thing. Well, I love the dichotomy of the fact that you have a doctorate in organizational psychology and yet you love astrology. I think that is one of the most wonderful things in all the world because it shows who you are in the world. It shows how you are open to everything. You are basically putting up a big ass sign saying, I'm curious as fuck, and here's what it is. And I love that. And there's so much of our lives and so much of business and everything is that we have to pigeonhole people and circumstances and jobs and work that we do and everything into these set boxes. This is this box, this is this box, this is this box, whatever. And we've designed our entire lives, our entire work. We've designed finance. We've done everything around people staying in their lane. Whatever your lane is, stake your claim and stay in your lane. And the reality is, in the world that we're in right now, the world that we're headed into, staying in your lane ain't going to get you where you want to go. You can't get anywhere if you stay in your lane. Like if you have no curiosity at all, there's no way you can start a business. How could you start a business if you lack in curiosity entirely? You can't. There's just no way. So
do you think that anyone ever truly lacks curiosity?
No.
Or do you think that the aversion to not knowing is so high that they've crushed it?
So thank you, by the way, for giving me my homework because it was fucking brilliant. It really was. And I'm cussing and I realize I'm cussing and I apologize to anyone who's wildly offended by my use of the F word. I love, first of all, that you use the definition at the beginning. I'm one of those people who, anytime someone brings up, and I actually asked Chatty G about this, by the way. I know I'm not finishing my sentence. It drives my husband nuts. He's like, finish your thought. I'm like, okay. So this is what living with me is like, y'all. I'm just saying. So a lot of times, a lot of the problems that I see in business or in any people trying to get anything done is that you are operating from different definitions of what something is. And you have not stated the fact that you're operating from different definitions because you don't know. You don't realize that you are definitely, everyone there's however many 8 billion people in the world. Each of us have our own view of life, blah, 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 blah. That applies to anytime we're trying to get anything done as a group, right? And we never take the time to actually say, this is what I think this word means. What do you think this word means? Like if we did that at the beginning of anything, it would clear up most crap that we have. I'm just saying. Okay, so Nicole gave me this homework. So I went to look at what curiosity is because I had this belief that I don't know if it was a belief, but I honestly thought, well, ADHD people are more curious, blah, 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 blah. Chatty G was like, nah, it isn't necessarily that you are more curious. It's simply that you have fewer inhibitors to your curiosity than the majority of other people are, the majority of other people have. So, and I don't know if that's a function of because our brains operate the way that they do and they're constantly going off in 20 million different squirrel holes or whatever it is. And so we've just learned, or I don't know if it's maybe it's the dopamine. Like you get the dopamine, you're like, ugh. Like anytime I'm curious about something, my brain goes, go get it, go get it, go get it. Chase the dopamine, grab the dopamine. Maybe that's what it is.
That is being the dopamine monster today.
I mean, that could be what it is, but it really is that we lack the inhibitions. We like words. I like them. They're good. Words are good. We lack the barriers that other people have created around that sense of being uncertain. Because what I'm learning more and more is that I have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is the only way I get anything done in my life or in my business or anything that I'm headed towards. I got to learn to be learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that was really uncomfortable to get that. And then being in the uncomfortability. You've seen it, Nicole. You've seen what it looks like when Deb's uncomfortable. It ain't pretty. I don't like being comfortable. I am a creature of comforts. I like my comforts. So it's been a tough row to hoe the last couple of years, learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. But on the upside, I feel like I have gotten so much because that curiosity is constantly going. And I get to meet the most amazing human beings because that curiosity is constantly going. It's amazing. Anyways, I'll shut up now. How do I get?
No.
Am I even on the traffic?
Am
I on the rails? I'm off the rails, aren't I?
I don't think there are rails, and that's totally
Okay.
fine because the rails are like lanes. And actually, we're gonna go off again for just a moment. So I started this little content series that I posted the first thing yesterday, and it's this whole like, when did we agree to this, and vintage dysfunction. I'm very proud of that hashtag, by the way. And one of the things that I have scheduled, and I don't know when I just scheduled them. They'll show up when they show up. I don't remember, and I'm not going to go check. But I don't think this one made the cut. But isn't it weird how we can't just say row? We have to say swim lane. Like, we can't just say like, oh yeah, no, this person has this responsibility, or like, this is this row in the Gantt chart. Like we call it a swim lane. Like, what does swimming have to do with corporate? And
girlfriend, it totally plays into your whole thing, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no. So this was one of the ones that got rejected. The others are all around my brain twitching whenever I hear the words solutioning or stakeholdering. Stakeholdering is a fairly new one for me. I had never heard that one until this past weekend, and my brain almost exploded. But solutioning is particularly offensive because we already had a word for that. It's solving. But instead of saying solving, we decided we needed a word that captured the how can we have 15 meetings about this?
The intrinsic power of the strategy behind what we're like. This is how we can charge more money for it, Nicole.
There you go. That's it. That's exactly it.
If we're solutioning rather than solving, you can charge 10, 15, 20,000 more dollars for it.
Yeah, because one person can solve. If we're solutioning, then we're also stakeholdering, and we're also like, what other like non-operationalizing. And I mean, like, come on.
We're gathering our forces to solve it, right? That's what it is.
No, we're not actually
effort involved in solving it. You're packing the effort involved in solving it into the word is what you're doing.
Yeah, except that you don't actually solve it. I mean, that's what makes me crazy about it. But anyhow, corporate dysfunction is its own topic, and we could probably spend weeks.
But we're talking about curiosity here. This is what we're talking about. And what if people lack curiosity at all? And I honestly, have there been any studies on this at all? Like, I'm asking you as the expert, have there been any studies on whether humans are actually, there are humans that are born without curiosity? And then I'm like, well, maybe sociopaths or psychopaths don't have any curiosity, but I would assert they probably have a lot of curiosity because the shit that they do.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Chris. I need to start a podcast so I can conversionate and vocabularize my thoughts, maybe for money. That the word you're looking for at the end of that is monetize. So I don't know. I didn't find anything about somebody who has been born without curiosity. What is interesting is that curiosity does ebb and flow throughout the lifetime. Like, children are more curious than mid-age adults, and older people actually. So there's sort of like a trough, like middle of your life, you become less curious, and then you become more curious again as you get older. There does seem to be some level of domain specific. So like the area that you're curious about shifts amongst age as well. So, children are just sort of more broadly curious and more novelty seeking and curiosity. And that's also an ADHD trait. Like, we tend to be more novelty seeking curious people.
I was going to say, you're talking about me, Nicole.
And then you also see, like, with autism, there's much more domain specific.
Yeah.
So, maybe extraordinarily curious about staplers. Sorry, I just saw a stapler. And or office supplies, and less curious about combustion engines.
Or why people
So,
say solutioning rather than solving.
right. There is a very, very specific subset of people who are curious about corporate dysfunction. And I suspect that there is also an overlap in the Venn diagram between those people and comedians. But I don't know that. I don't know if anyone's done that science. So, and then as you get older, you tend to get more curious in a deeper way about things you already know something about.
Yeah.
And so, like, and some of that, it's interesting because that aging research is also tied, like, it turns out there was a confounding factor there, that, like, it wasn't actually age driven, it was perception of less time. So you begin to get more efficient with your curiosity.
Oh.
So I thought that was really interesting. And then there is this gap in the way we measure curiosity, because you can't really, again, you can see behaviors, but the behaviors can have different reasons, and you can ask motivation, but you may not get the correct answer. And so if we think about, like, the homework I had set you was, is it possible to use an LLM to train curiosity into people? And I did my own version of that homework, and did not come up with the most positive answer to it. So I'm curious if you found something I didn't. But
well, and it's all going to be driven by and I will say this till I'm blue in the face. The results that you get with an LLM are a direct resemblance of the person using it. It is a mirror. It is a megaphone. That is all AI is. Yeah, I know. I know it does. So let me go into my, so I actually had it come up with the freebie, and I didn't read actually what it is, but what I found was interesting about it was that it told me, do not use the word curious in the freebie at all. Because as soon as you tell people that you're trying to measure for curiosity, or that you're trying to help them with, they will, I gotta be curious. I gotta show this behavior, which I would assert is the same way when you're in a corporation and your livelihood depends on how you get along in that corporation, that will automatically, translate into how you behave. But what it had me do was, it had me actually ask a completely different question around, instead of curiosity. You do your thing, and let me see if I can find it.
I don't know if I have a thing. Ted, did we run out of things to talk about? How so I think, it's interesting. Rumi was talking about this, and he had this really fantastic name of the construct, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it is. But there is this ability to hold different concepts and to bring them in temporarily, play with them, see if they fit, see if they have a place in what you're building, and then kick them back out when they don't, or only keep the pieces you need. And that is an ability that humans have, and particularly curious humans, that an LLM doesn't. Like, once it brings it in, it has trouble kicking it. It won't kick it out unless you tell it to kick it out, or it forgets. I mean, sometimes it'll forget. But that porous nature of information, I think, is very critical to this capacity. And then there's another, like, so I used to have this image in my mind of my brain just being this whole filing system, and I had these little, like, secretaries who ran through it and grabbed files and brought them back, and, like, brought them to my mouth so I could say out loud the thing that I was trying to retrieve. And I have a lot of trouble to this day operating without notes, because I have internalized this concept that the fluidity with the way you say something is an indicator of your intelligence or how well you know it.
That's one of your biases. That's one of your biases. Yeah. Okay.
100%. And so, in my head, it's these little, like, people running around grabbing the files, and they are terribly inefficient. # ADHD. So I that image got replaced a few years ago when the movie Inside Out came out, and now it's all these little like crystal balls, right? And there's a specific moment in that movie that gave me a different idea, a different conceptualization of the way my brain works versus the way so many other people's brains work. And I it's very easy when you have ADHD and you've spent your whole life like I had this diagnosis late, but I also had that little gifted and talented tag. And so I've spent my whole life being told I'm not living up to my potential and that I should be able to do X, Y, and Z, and that like my inability to grab these things is in fact an indicator of my deficits.
I would be the most brilliant person in this world if I would have just lived up to my potential, lived up to like if I just organized enough, or if I put in more effort, if I would have put in the full 100%. Because I look back on college and I'm like, yeah, I probably would have done better. I graduated with honors, but I could have graduated summa if I would have really put the effort into it.
Yeah, and it's it is what it is, right? Like the history has happened. And as I've grown and learned and looked at, frankly, I don't want my own child to have this deficit view of their brain. And so I've been figuring out how to be kinder to myself. And one of the things that I'm really, really good at is letting my files get a little mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, since Inside Out came out, now it's not files anymore, it's those little like globes. And there's this moment in Inside Out where sadness touches one of the core memories and it starts like turning blue in with the yellow. And I was like, that's close to how my brain works, but it's not quite there. And so what I've decided is that neurotypical people, the people with their like happy, easy retrieval systems that like have the little minions who retrieve things and send them back and they're great and they're perfect and they can say the word.
They're in the right order and they make sense and yeah.
So those people like have glass globes, right? My material is a little more porous. It's not glass. It gets contaminated from the things that are next to it. And the shelves are not well organized. World Geography does not have all of its little globes together. World Geography has some globes that are like fish species, and some globes that are apple varieties, and some globes that are random ideas that I heard on a podcast, and some ideas that are George Carlin quotes. Right. And they all sort of sit like near each other and they absorb, they cross pollinate.
It's porous.
And so when I have an idea, I may not be able to retrieve because my filing system sucks and everything is all jumbled. And like, you have to go like search the shelves one by one because you can't just go look in the apple section to find out that the word you're looking for is Honeycrisp. You have to like actually look at the memories. But that same brain also gives me this idea of cross-pollination and the understanding that hybrid ideas can be better and more disease resistant and have prettier skin and have a better flavor and have the combination of tart and sweet and a good
You're making me drool right now. I want a Honeycrisp apple so bad right now. I'm like,
the best.
They're the
so
best.
Oh. And like, they almost didn't happen. Like for a while, Red Delicious had so completely overtaken the US market that the other kinds of apples had gone away. Red Delicious are a marketing triumph. Red Delicious
They're disgusting. Red Delicious are like mealy and they're like
pretty.
Ugh. Oh,
they're pretty. They're
you just gave a whole perfect example of the United States in general. It looks great, but it's mealy on the inside.
No. It doesn't matter that it looks great. It matters that it looks great, it ships well, and it has longer shelf life, so it doesn't harm your grocery store margins as much. Like we do not care about the customer experience. We don't care that it's mealy and disgusting and flavorless. No, Chris, you did not love Red Delicious. You're lying. You can't admit that here.
Like, you are missing something very important if you think that Red Delicious is yummy. I'm just saying.
It's a great name. Anyways, I mean, they're fine. They're fine. They're a fine apple. But Honeycrisp pink ladies are a little tart for me. My husband loves green apples. I cannot think of those as anything besides pie apples. Like
I like green apples when you mix them with a little, like, I like to actually like have a little bit. I'm like, like if I can't have a Honey Crisp, which gives me that naturally all in one little package, I can go with a red and with a green, and then I get pretty damn close to it.
Yeah. The ones that I really liked for the longest time were Fuji. Like when they were starting to bring apples back.
Yep.
How did this is like so
I
indicative
gotta tell
of
you,
our
Honey
podcast.
Crisp, did you know that they were developed in Minnesota?
I'm
just saying, you did not know that, did you? U of M, thank you very much. Not that I have anything to do with it.
I did not know that. I didn't know that Minnesota had a huge agriculture. Like CSU, Colorado State University, like their extension is like my go-to for plants. When I moved here, I grew up in Texas and Oklahoma, and I lived in Miami for 11 years, and I have a sort of brown thumb. It's not quite deadly, but it's definitely not green. And I didn't realize how dramatically different the zone is in Colorado from what I grew up in. And so multiple plants that are perennials in my whole life were not perennials here. And I thought I was being
Ain't gonna
responsible.
work, girly.
I went to go find out how to overwinter them, and they just laughed at me. And I was like, oh, cool. Here I am. I guess I'm going to have an expensive time next
spring.
See,
and moving to Texas was like, Texas for me was very traumatic in that sense, because I had lived and I'd been born and raised in Minnesota. I knew that you could only grow. You only had to grow between
to be fair,
May and like September, right? That's the only time you can grow anything. Cockroaches only get that big because they die. And then I moved to Texas, and it was like, holy shit balls, like, nothing ever
the rest
dies.
Of Texas. guys, Texas is not where Deb lived in Houston. Houston is different from
Houston's
Texas.
A sweaty armpit.
It's all sweaty. There's a lot of bugs. The whole state, a lot of bugs. But the level of humidity and tropicalness that is Houston is not the rest of the state. It's sweaty, it's hot, but Houston is sort of special.
The first time that
it's special way.
The first time it downpoured, I remember I was working downtown Houston. I was working for Accenture, and I think it was Accenture at that point. I think it had been named Accenture at that point. Yeah. No, it was still Anderson Consulting. And I was at a tall high rise, and I remember looking out the window and being like, holy crap, like the level of rain that was coming out. If I would have seen that rain in Minnesota, I would be like, that's it. It's the second coming of Christ. We're all fucked. And I would just remember, oh my God. And then I was a smoker at the time. So of course I was like, well, how am I going to be able to go out and smoke? Because that's so I was like, oh, I'm going to see what I can do. And 15 minutes later, I go out and the rain has stopped. There's a couple of puddles here and there. But in the time that I'm out there having a cigarette, the puddles have already dried up. I'm like, what the dickens? This is insane.
I mean, you're lucky the puddles dried up. That entire city is concrete, and they have no drainage. So yeah, we are so far down.
We were talking about apples. We're talking about you and the cross-pollination that's going on in your brain with all the different ways your files work. I found my thing, by the way. It told me not to use curiosity. It said instead what your last AI conversation says about you. That's what the freebie is going to be. Now, what it gave me is very basic. It didn't do a lot of crap around what I need to include into it, what not to include in it. But it really is. We're going to look at, what is it your last conversation that says about you? And here's the things to look at. 5 specific behavioral tells that a question got swallowed in a real AI conversation. You accepted the first answer when something was still unclear. You didn't push back when the AI told you your idea was great. Started a tangent and pulled yourself back to the topic after starting the tangent. Asked for the deliverable instead of the thinking. Softened your question with, this might be a dumb question, but those are the 5 behavioral tells, supposedly, according to this. This was all thrown together at when you told me at like 10 o'clock. When you gave me my homework, this is what I got at the first pass.
I knew you were going to stay up late. She was supposed to be going to bed. So just reacting through that, right? Like this is the sort of caveats that I would tell anyone. So first of all, this is going to tell you like what you may or may not have been worried about with that specific conversation, right? So if you went in to ask it, give me 5 things I can do with ground beef, carrots, and tomato sauce, and it gave you 5 things and you moved on, I don't think you can like make a big judgment call about that.
No, you can't.
Um, if you followed the tangent and you came back, but you don't, you the person will know what you did with the tangent. Did you end up creating like 6 things out of that? And like it went off by Chris, went off and maybe that productivity or that curiosity didn't show up in the chat. And so
Nope.
this is another reason why you can't say like, how curious are you?
This is not going to be the definitive
Yeah.
determination, but it will be something fun and it'll be free and it's AI
Yeah.
related. So it
Well,
checks the boxes.
This is also like the text message that started all of this was me going, Deb, you are treating every single one of these freebies as if they are going to be people's only experience of your work and as if they must solve the world's problems. And I recognize this because this is behavior that I do all the time. I mean, the advice my father-in-law gave me for my dissertation was, Nikki, dissertation is not the time to save the world. He also told me to be a laser beam and not a light bulb, which felt like an attack.
But it's true though. I mean, it's that's actually really good advice. That's good.
He's telling me not to scatter my energy, right? Oh no, he gives amazing advice. One of those things that he said to me, like, and I'm glad he said it to me when I was 26 and ready for it. Although part of me wishes I had learned this at 14. We were in the middle of some random discussion, and I was right. I was right with a capital R and maybe like a trademark symbol. And he looked at me and he goes, Nikki, sometimes you're so right, you're wrong. And I was like, you're right. I'm sorry. That was so, I mean, it's just one of those, like, what were we talking about before the call? Like, the well, actually, as the
the certainty,
It's just funny because I'm not that person.
You're not.
Who is like unwilling to listen to other evidence or who isn't willing to like.
But there may have been a point in your life when you were, right? This to me is one of those.
I mean,
this is one of those things where people go through life and some people will get to their 50s and 60s and they will still be in the horrible place that they were most of their life because they had absolutely no curiosity about themselves, about how they played a part in that. Because the reality is life is not happening to you. You are in life doing life, whatever life might be. But we act like the world is so horrible. It does all this. It's like, who were you in the middle of your life? Like, there needs to be some curiosity about that. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because one of the first, again, this kind of goes back to like having spent part of my life being the combative right person. I don't like being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like being wrong because I feel bad when I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that will happen is if given the space to do so, like trapping me in an argument and cornering me is like cornering an animal. It's a terrible plan. And I will say the meanest thing I can say.
You're like a rabbit, like
meanest way. Oh yeah, no,
you're a rabid honey badger. You're a rabid honey badger when you're cornered. You're like, ah!
Yeah, no, I will like targeted like death shot to get out of it, right? But usually I am able to escape and to have some space. And this is one of the things I actually kind of appreciate about like working remotely is you have space to process your feelings and like to have your second reaction when the first reaction isn't the right one. Mm-hmm. And I will ask myself, okay, what does this look like if I'm not the hero? Like, what does this look like if I'm the bad guy? What is the story I'm telling about this if I'm the bad guy? And this is one of those like pieces of advice I've given my 8-year-old, and every once in a while I'll look at him and I'll be like, Micah, you're getting this advice completely for free, and people pay thousands of dollars to learn this stuff.
And he's not appropriately, he's not appropriately grateful, is he?
No, he is.
Oh,
mostly
okay,
because I've taught him to act grateful. I don't know that he is great. Maybe he's doing grateful and not being grateful. I don't know.
Just like everyone in corporate is doing curiosity without being curious.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone. Some people make it through. They eventually either cave or start their own thing, right? Like it's interesting. Like I'm curious what the next few years bring, because we have a whole crowd of tremendously talented people who are at loose ends right now, and they've seen behind the curtain like we have, right? They know this isn't working, and so I'm curious how many of them will start something that isn't this. And I'm also curious what the ecosystem starts to look like as people build tools to do different. This is like one of the tools that I'm building is a way to do different. All of the advice that's out there is advice to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want
to do the same with different branding?
It's
do the same with different branding. That's literally what it is.
Yeah, and why do you want to build the same thing that failed you so tremendously?
Because it doesn't look like failure. To a lot of people, becoming a billionaire does not look like failure. It doesn't. And now some would assert, like, if you have very little empathy for other human beings, and if your only concern is how many yachts you can have or how many, whatever, I would assert that there's probably a little bit of failure happening there somewhere. That's my personal opinion. Because we can't just say, just because someone is really great in the area of business or making money, that they're really a great human being. And it's funny how we make that assumption. Like, I mean, hell, the reason we have the president we do right now is because too many people made that assumption. But that's a whole nother conversation we're not going to get into. But yeah, I'm sorry. I just totally took your thing and ran with it. And did you lose your track, or are you still on your track?
There wasn't a track.
There was no track. Okay, cool. Then me hijacking it wasn't a true, complete hijacking. I'm going to need to do better at hijacking.
I've forgotten the track. I don't know. I've forgotten the track if there was a track. But yeah, like how do we I think, okay, this is what we're going to end on. So we've spent generations prioritizing doing curious, looking curious, giving easy, quick, sellable, marketable answers. We are entering a time that is not going to reward that. You can't base all of your plans for tomorrow on what worked yesterday when tomorrow looks nothing like yesterday. You're going to have to get comfortable with not knowing the answer, with asking questions you don't know the answer to, with asking questions you may not like the answer to. How can you today look at what you are surrounded by and begin to ask those questions? And so I'll remind you of what I've talked about with Nomad. What feels dangerous to question? What feels stupid to question? What feels silly or evil or pointless to question? And ask those questions and sit with it. Practice being uncomfortable. So that's my advice.
I stamp of approval from Deb entirely. In fact, I'm probably going to grab that last little section because, lady, that was gorgeous. Mwah! The entertainer, the sage, the entertaining me was like, God, she's so good. That's like, what do they call that? Like, the end cap on something, like, like what was that TV show, that Miami CSI with what's his face with the glasses, and he'd always do that like little phrase at the beginning, like, I don't remember what it was. There's a phrase for it when you're doing TV and you do a little thing, like a little cap on it to, like, boom, and then it goes into the music at the end of it. That's what you just did. I don't know what that thing's called. There's a name for it in TV and in performing and whatever, but that was what that was. For anyone who didn't know.
Just launched 1,000 LLM searches. because that's not something you can just ask Google. Like that is something you can go ask Perplexity and it will like figure something out for you. Which by the way is probably my favorite thing about LLMs is I can just ask, like I always ask Google, like, hey Google, like how do I? But I would have to like have the words for the thing I was trying to do.
This is why
And
Google has always bothered me, because I never would ask the question the way it was supposed to be asked. And then I'd be stuck. Like,
you didn't think in keywords?
I don't think.
All right, everyone. So here's our new plan. So we are not doing the actual editing anymore. We're just going to post these live. So this is going to be the end of the episode. We are piloting an idea for a Rails optional after party. So we're not doing it today, but send us some messages and we'll see, and we'll figure out whether we do like a secondary live right after, or if we do a little Zoom room where everyone can hang out and actually
then we could bring everyone in and we could all, you know, oh, that'd be awesome.
So yeah, let us know. You all talk to all of us in either LinkedIn DMs or Substack DMs, or many of you actually have my cell phone to text message me. So send me what you think. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out in our little clubhouse on the ground, our tree house on the ground. Because you have
our ground house. They're hanging out with us at our ground house.
Yes, Chris, where the crazy really can occur. So if you listen to the last episode, the chit chat that happens after the episode is where all the fun is. But I'm not certain that Substack will let me just. It's the most fun. I'm not certain that Substack will let me just like clip this part off. So this is an experiment today. I'm going to see. We're going to cut it, and then we'll come back with knowledge and power.
Because that's how it follows. You have knowledge, then you have power.
I believe that my childhood reassured me that knowing is half the battle. You gotta love when the U.S. Army puts recruiting into cartoons. That was a really fun rabbit hole to dive down. The cartoons of the 80s were truly unhinged. Anyhow, love you all. See you soon.
How do I get